I'm so excited you kept the entirety of the intro.
I
I
did
love
it.
that.
I did it all
You
by
did.
myself.
You
I like
did.
that
Well,
intro. That's one of my
I love
favorite intros.
that.
It's kind of
I love
fun.
that intro. Welcome everybody to episode 2 of Seek with Your Soul, formerly known as the Deep End, but we were made aware that there was another lecture series out there called the Deep End, and we didn't want to step on any toes, and it doesn't change what it is we want to talk about. So, and really, I kind of almost think Seek with Your Soul might fit a little bit better. That's
I
just
think
my
so.
opinion.
Yeah, because it's
Yeah.
not about drowning, but it is
No.
about some deep conversations, which I think tonight will be
Yeah.
the first deep conversation.
Yeah. Ooh, I hope
Hey,
everybody's ready.
Joby.
But before we do that, I have to say hi to people because I hated it last time. I couldn't do it. I couldn't not say hello to everybody. So let's say
Don't do
hello
it.
to our friends. We're going to do that. Let me go up to the top here. We have Stacy is with us tonight. Hello, Stacy. We have Danny Marie is here with us. So excited she's back. We have Trevor from We the Haunted. Love that. We have Sam from Sam's Pretty Paranormal. And I know Kaylee is here. Love that. Thank you. Didn't Rob do a fantastic job? I love that. It's Joe B. Thank you, Joe B. Um, so yes, we want to go, here's the thing. We
Yeah,
we kind of
Rachel,
had
you missed
did I
Rachel.
did I did. Oh, I'm so sorry,
Jesus.
Rachel.
And
So
another
not nice.
Facebook user.
Okay. Hello, Facebook user. And another and
Could be the
another, and
same
it's
one. Don't
Bridget.
know. Bridget's there.
Bridget's here. Hello, everybody. So, if you came to the first show, welcome back. We just kind of ran through some of our thoughts on how we wanted to share with you guys. If you are new tonight, welcome to our deep conversations of Seek with Your Soul. We want to talk about why we experience the paranormal the way we do. And we're going to start from the very beginning. We kind of thought that might be a good place to start. Although last show we did talk about think about when your first your first experience, and it might not be the share that you share when somebody asks. A lot of times people will say, "Oh, it was a few years ago," or "It was after," you know. But when you really ask somebody to stop and say, hey, what really the first time you think you experienced something that you might not have understood the paranormal aspect, but you knew that it was something different, and that answer is usually different than the one that you give.
Well, it is, and even I think when you posed that question to me the first time, I
Sabrina.
had to sit and think, hey, Sabrina, I had to sit and think. And then I started looking backwards to
Mhm.
different things. And there was one that really stood out that was, pretty much it was a critical decision and it was all
Mhm.
intuition,
Mhm.
but I don't know. So to me, yeah, that was kind of a paranormal experience now that I understand a bit more about the paranormal and at
Yeah.
least what I believe in. So yeah, I think those answers can change. And if people sit and truly think back to
Mhm.
times where they were left going, how the hell did that happen? It could be that their first experience isn't the textbook experience that people present.
Right. Right. And so so we all understand having this conversation and what you're going to hear Rob and I discussing, and we hope that you guys join in on this conversation because it is about all of us. It is not just about Rob and I. Um, you know, we don't, none of this is meant to offend. None of it is meant to challenge you in the sense of we don't believe you, so we want you to think our way. We want to challenge ourselves. We want to challenge ourselves to have a really good, deep understanding about why we all experience paranormal the way we do. It can be different, I think. And well, not I think, I know everybody really experiences it very differently.
Oh
And
yeah.
I think sometimes we try to fit them into certain categories, right? We try to shove them into these categories that fit a narrative that we see out on TV or in movies. But what we want to do is we want to share with all of you how we talk about things a lot of times, and it's tearing apart our own belief system, tearing apart our own experiences, and building them back up, and really kind of get a better idea of like, okay, what could we be missing? Because I think it's not about saying none of this, hey, Teresa, that none of this is about paranormal. We're not saying that at all. But what is paranormal? What isn't paranormal? And you might be missing some paranormal that you thought was something a little bit more logical. We don't know. But I kind of find that it's a little bit more fun to kind of take it all apart and see what we can come up with. And you guys might have an experience. You might hear something Rob and I say that really resonates with you. You might say, oh my gosh,
It's
and that will
possible.
help us.
Yeah, I mean, and going back to your point, even you know, when I've been to a new location that someone was there prior, if I was there, if that I was with that person and they had this incredible experience, you hear that and you go into it already with some pre-existing notions about what may or may not happen or what may or may not be there. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, it's not until you really stop and break everything down and look at it from all these different angles. But yeah, and
Right.
some of the things like the things I'll talk about tonight, because I did a little bit of research on the topic, aren't meant to sound like your experiences aren't your experiences. I'm just putting things out there where it shows people's different perspectives on what it may or may not be. Sarah and I have been in rooms where something happened, some kind of experience happened. I saw it one way, she saw it another way. Um, doesn't mean either one of us are right or wrong. It just means, well, I think it's why we do the deep dive, right? Why does Sarah experience things much differently than I
Mhm.
do, much differently than Danny does?
Mhm.
There's a lot of there's a lot if you start thinking about it.
And I think this is where we really start to understand that our differences, and stay with me here for a second. This is where we start to understand when we talk about these openly and we trust that what we're saying, um, that it's being handled gently. But on top of that, that we can hear an opposing view without it knocking us down, that we can hear that, hey, maybe have you looked at it this way? Why can't we stop for 5 seconds and say, okay, I'll look at it that way for a minute and
Yeah.
see if it feels any better or any worse. But I think this is where our differences really are the common thread. And that's what I think is so beautiful about this journey, because in those differences, you're going to hear some similarities somewhere. And it could be the living aspect, that's where you have some similarities and you understand that these aspects of our experiences growing up and living play into our interaction with the afterlife. It just does. We can't deny some of that stuff. And so I think this is going to be really an interesting conversation. So we hope that each and every one of you participate. It is all about vibrations. I totally believe that we all vibrate at different levels and different frequencies, and this is the thing, like, and we, so it's not about right or wrong. We're just sharing how we paranormal, and we're going to try to get into tonight. We're going to start with some age groups and kind of talk about things that are common that happen in those age groups. But before that, Chris, what does Chris say? Hey guys, questions. Have you guys ever gotten any objects thrown at you? I have not. Rob, have you had an object thrown at you?
There was one. Well, there were two times in all the years of doing this where it appears that something was thrown. First time it was a tin can at Penhurst. It wasn't thrown at me. It was kind of thrown at somebody else, but I happened to be next to them, we think.
Okay.
And then the second time was my favorite one. I had my ex-wife at the Shanley Hotel, and something did throw a rock at her, and it was not me.
This
That
is before she was your ex, so
Yes,
probably not.
we were married at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, those rocks down in that basement there were pebbles. They weren't like rocks, but small pebbles were thrown at her, and it was a weird night. But yeah, so they didn't like her.
Well, it happens. It happens.
It happened.
Okay, Rob, let's kind of start because this is and I thought this was a good place to start because it is kind of how we started when you first reached out to me to share your Conjuring House story,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
it is. You know, I was a
Okay.
much different person, a much different investigator, and I had very different belief systems up until that night where
Hmm.
that's a whole different show and a whole different story. But yeah, you know, I had a perception on and a notion and ideas about what was happening to me. And this wasn't over the course of a day or a week or a month. There was about an 8-month stretch where things were not good. Um, yeah, no, Rebecca, no. But things were not good. And, you know, it took, again, here's where we take perspective and put it in its proper place. Um, didn't know at the time that all of these things that um, were happening for a very, very good reason. It's just when you're in the middle of it, feels
Yeah.
like the end of the world. And it almost was, you know, and that's how and why I reached out to you. I didn't even really know you at that point. But once you started pointing out some things and giving me a new perspective and uh, quite literally like a new life, holy shit, everything changed. And even the way the house treats me now compared to then, um, don't know if it's acting any differently or the activity in that, but it's certainly how I view it differently now.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
doesn't mean I don't respect it, doesn't mean that I don't have reverence for it, but it's a very it can be a very powerful place for some. But yeah, what I thought was bad was ultimately good, and we can go as deep into that as you guys want. But that was a defining moment
Hmm.
for me on how I looked at the paranormal, how I looked at life, how I looked at the things that happen uh, to us on the
Yeah.
daily that may or
Hmm.
may not be paranormal, but
Yeah.
it's hard to deny that some things seem
Yeah.
to be tied together.
So just again, I want to put out there the disclaimer is this: we are not here to offend you. We are not here to. This is not an argument. We are having an open discussion. We are taking apart our own belief systems, and if that happens to touch on one of yours, please know it's not personal. We are here to take some things apart to build them back up to have a better understanding. I think some of the problem with paranormal is we take it at face value. We take it at what the TV says, or somebody that we respect in the paranormal, what they say, we just kind of use that. I'm a big believer in, I question sort of everything. I will question it all, and it's okay. It's okay if what I had believed, for many years was not really the truth. It's okay. You can keep going. It doesn't matter how far down the path you are, you can start a new one. So please know we're not here to offend you. We're just here to
No,
have an open conversation.
no. Here's the thing, right? And even the night when you gave me the beginning of the solution for me, right? It was. I was a little like, how the it was just it was too much. But then, you fast forward, and you really have to listen to the whole story, which we're not doing tonight. But after going on Andrea's show with this new perspective on it,
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
phone calls started coming in, right? And people that I'd already met that I had no idea were facing some of the same challenges that I had been facing. That story became very
Yeah.
important to them. And they too had all these things. And they were like, holy shit, Rob, how'd you figure it
Mhm.
out? Oh my God. Like calls from Australia, calls from here, all over.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
And I think what it did for some
Mhm.
was it unlocked that piece
Yeah.
to bring them to that next level of understanding for them. And you know what? Even if it's wrong, for me, it's a better story, right? I'm not waking up wishing I didn't.
Look, yeah, I think the other thing is let's also remember we are living people, and what do I mean by remember that? We connect with living experiences, not with dead ones. And I think this is where sometimes we get a little lost. I think sometimes when we speak as investigators or people who research the paranormal in any form or fashion, we get a little too confident in what it is we're saying. And the reality is we don't really have the final answer. We know what resonates with us and we know what works for us. And sometimes that doesn't mean it doesn't mean it's wrong and it doesn't mean it's right. It just means it's what's working for you. But how we connect are through our living experiences. And I'm hoping that's kind of what this show will also show people is that we might begin to see why certain people do experience the paranormal, and it is based on living experiences. So I want to make mention of Stacy's comment because this I think is very interesting. He's saying the
Yeah.
dead communicate through the past of, I think he's meant the path of least resistance. If your personality is auditory, you hear. That's you, Rob. You definitely have the gift of hearing. If you're kinetic, they use feelings. That is totally Danny. And I guess me, I guess I'm all about my gut. I don't know. Would you use that for me? Would you think that?
Yes and no. Like your gut instincts are almost always on point. Um, but I also know I've also seen some things and heard some things
Mhm.
from you that are beyond just like gut instinct. You are nowhere. You are connected in ways that I can't explain. It's pretty creepy sometimes. Um, I don't know. Like it astounds me the things sometimes and the things that you see, but then fight, right? Like white hell. I mean,
Mhm.
we like here. Perfect example is we both sat there and could count probably the figures we saw standing there, but she still fought it, right? Even though she saw it, but um, you're not usually a seer,
No.
but things are changing with you lately. So you're getting more and more. It's odd. You've got this weird force field around you. But
I do have a force field
yeah, I
around me.
don't know how to exactly you hear,
Yeah.
you do hear, you do see. I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
don't know if I'm confident with that. I don't know if I'm confident with
I
that.
know you're not. This is a whole nother show we'll do where I'll,
Yeah,
I'll
that's a
just
whole
yell at
nother one.
Sarah the entire show about what,
Yeah.
because
You'll
she,
see a real fight. You'll see a
yeah,
real fight.
okay.
Yeah. Bridget's question, do you feel like sometimes you have to get brought down to a place like you were in order to get to where you are now? I mean, that's human nature, right? Rock bottom sometimes shows you exactly where you need to go.
Well, that was exactly what happened for
Mhm.
me. Um,
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, I was probably at the worst. The day I picked up the phone to call Sarah was not a good day. Not call her, but I messaged her. It's probably the worst day of my life. Um, so yeah, like certainly had to. You know, it's like boot camp. You know, I was in the infantry. Boot camp is what's, you know, it's looked at as harsh and brutal, especially in the old when I went in.
Mhm,
But there's a reason for it, and they have to break you
mhm.
down to zero. You know, it's why they shave everybody's head. It's why you have to all wear the
Yeah,
same thing.
yeah.
It's why we all do what we had to do in the military. It's to get everybody back to zero, build you
Mhm.
back up, bigger, stronger, better. So yeah, I do believe that.
Yeah, it's a good question, Bridget. Trevor's asking, Rob, when you go back to The Conjuring, do you sometimes feel the past leaking through again, or has it all gone into the sunset? How do you feel about that?
Different when I'm there now.
Mhm,
I think the second time I went back after everything, the end of that night, I left a little early because things started getting a little weird, and I wasn't digging that vibe. Um, it'll creep in, you know, like when I do, every time I walk into that library, um, it's hard to forget, right?
mhm, mhm,
So yeah, it does come back. I guess the thing I can say is it doesn't scare me anymore. I don't feel like it's a problem. I feel like I think we've settled whatever score we had, right?
yeah,
It knows
yeah,
I did what I had to do, and I'm still doing the things I need to do. Um, so you know, I don't think there's anything bad there. I think there's some not
mhm,
so friendly fuckers that hang around once in a while or pop in. Don't know if they're permanent residents, but um, yeah, it's certainly there, and it taught me a lesson. I feel like I'm pretty well protected there now.
yeah,
I don't know how else to say it.
yeah. It's that house definitely, and I think what if you guys are here and you're in the conversation, right? That could be a t-shirt, by the way. Not so friendly fuckers, Conjuring House. Um, please know that we're not using general statements. We're not saying every paranormal experience. We're not saying every entity or energy or ghost or spirit. We're not saying this is not a general. We are talking about our own personal experiences and what they could mean. So yeah, this is where I think we're gonna start. We're gonna start with ages. If you guys got your notebook, get ready because we're gonna have things that I think you might want to keep. But
222.
there you go. I saw that.
All right.
22 too. You might want to kind of keep some notes here because what we're hoping is each show is in succession here. So you can kind of, we want to go. We want to start. We want to start at the beginning. So look, I'll be honest. I like to say sometimes controversial things. These views and these questions are Sarah's and Sarah's alone. These do not belong to Get Haunted. They don't belong to Rob. But
Well,
this is how we have conversations. This is how Rob and I talk, and it can get real. And Rob and I don't agree on actually a lot of things in paranormal. I don't think we have very similar, I think, thoughts about in the bigger picture, but I think how some things might come to be or how some things are experienced, I don't think we always agree.
not always. No,
No, but
no,
that's okay because that's
it's
I think
okay.
how it's supposed to be. um
I
so
can't.
let's start here. What's
You
that?
can't
Are you
always
ready?
be right.
I can't always be right, but I'm right a lot of the time.
I can most of the time. That's all I'm
Yeah,
saying.
yeah. So where we'll start, and I wanna say this. So let's Rob and I had this conversation earlier. Let's talk about this for a second. So I have heard, this is not a slam. I'm just going to tell you what things I've heard, and let's put our egos aside for one show and let's just discuss. Um there are some people that have made the claims. When I was 2, I remember a ghost coming and sitting in front of my crib or my bed. My thought is Two, you wouldn't have a conceptual idea about what a ghost was. It wouldn't, at 2 years old, you might be nervous. We agree, Rob and I agree, fear is something you feel from the minute you're born. It's an emotion. You're going to be startled, but you don't understand it. So let's talk about when we probably have a good concept to be able to remember and to understand, even not at its fullest, but to have a better understanding. And so I chose the ages between 6 and 9. And I'm going to say 6 because a lot of us might have already started school. Some of us might have older siblings, and so they might have put some thoughts in your head. So you're going to start understanding what some of these emotions and what causes these emotions. Maybe 5. I'll give you 5. But I'm just saying this is just a roundabout, people, and I am not a professional. I am just a girl who completely loves this and loves to dig into this. So what do you feel about the ages of 6 to 9, Rob? How does that settle with you?
Listen, I don't know what my problem is, but my memory is garbage,
Mm-hmm.
especially of my childhood for whatever reason. I remember certain things,
Mm-hmm.
not a whole lot. Um, so for me, I would struggle to remember much other than maybe really digging Star Wars. You know what I'm
At
saying?
6?
Was that out yet? I hope so, or I hope not. I
Uh,
don't even know.
I can't.
But hey, three souls. But no, it seems like a fair age, right? Just so I'm gauging what my answers
Mm-hmm.
based on my own kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I know from what I saw from her when she was 3-ish, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it really kind of goes in line, it falls in line with what you were saying, because that was really when things got weird for me and got me doing this quite often. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there was no fear on her side. It was all
Mm-hmm.
kind of
Mm-hmm.
fascination. But I'm jumping ahead. So yes, I would say probably a fair assessment, because then right around 5 or 6, she did get very inquisitive about
Mm-hmm.
things and scary movies. At 6, she
Mm-hmm.
started getting interested at 6, 7 years old, which was weird.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that was the thing. It was after Monsters Inc., the movie, the cartoon, that she wanted to see her first scary movie. I'd say that's a fair gauge, 6 to 9.
Yeah.
Prior to that, it's hard to guess.
Right. So, Sam, you bring up a very good point. But see, you're seeing him experience this, but at 3, he doesn't have the concept yet as to what that could be. Even though you're into the paranormal, the reality is 3 is a pretty young age to have a grasp at, number one, death and what the afterlife means. And they might understand, like, why don't you see what I see? They
Yeah,
might have those questions, but I think that, somebody else might remember you at a young age doing something, just like you stated, Rob. Seeing Ava at a young age have some odd behavior where you're thinking, okay, what the heck could this be attributed to, right?
yeah, and that even I would catch her, like she
Mm-hmm.
built a shrine for my dad. She would sit and play with him.
Mm-hmm.
She would be talking to him, kind of similar to Sam's story there. She never showed any fear. Only
Mm-hmm.
one time did she show fear. That was at a hospital. We were
Mm-hmm.
walking down the hallway, and she just stopped, and I'm like, "What the hell? What are you looking at?" And she just was like, she didn't like it. What did scare her at that age was, and we kind of talked about this, like people in
Yeah.
costumes jumping out,
Yeah.
or not
Mm-hmm.
jumping out like in a scary way, but coming out of like
Yeah.
Disney. Like she
Yeah.
hated that shit. So the
Yeah.
jump scare stuff I get, but paranormal fear, ghosts and
Mm-hmm.
goblins, no, she didn't have that. It wasn't until later, after the
Mm-hmm.
movies and shows, where I
Mhm.
think some fear started settling in for her.
Yeah. Um, Trevor is saying he started having weird lucid dreams when he was 8ish. I wish we could record dreams because I was talking to people I didn't even know in real life. And this is the thing. I think there's an age where it clicks, but we have to now we're going to take it a step further now. So, there are lots of questions, I think, in that young age range that we have to take in consideration. Did you come from a single parent home? These are things that you don't have to answer to us. We're just asking you to think about why you might experience the paranormal the way you do. But there is some similarities to children who are raised in a home with just a mother and or with two parents or with older siblings. I happen to have siblings who are 10 and 7 years older than me. So guess what? When you're 6 and your sister is 16, you're watching children shouldn't play with dead things. Guess what? Your fear now is based on things that you cannot wrap your little head around, right? You see your sisters freaking out because they're a teenager and they're having fun watching a scary movie. Very different experience for a
Yeah.
6-year-old. So you have to be honest with yourself and ask, because I think back to those ages, and Rob and I, this is something that Rob and I have a similarity in. Um, I have massive, I should say, massive chunks of my life that I don't remember. And I have a sister who can verify this because she will say, "Hey, do you remember blah 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 blah?" And I'll be like, "Not even remotely." I can tell you I do not remember having one family meal with my family in the home that I was in from the time I was born to um, the time I was 8 years old. I do but I do remember being in bed with sheets up over when I had to sleep upstairs and everybody was down in the family TV room watching TV because I had to go to, because I was so much younger, I was in bed, but I remember feeling like they were worlds away and I was scared of all things like vampires, right? All the things that I'm sure they made me watch.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
understand. I thought this stuff was real.
See, and I can't remember a whole lot. I can, but numbers. I remember my first phone number ever. Like I can run that
Mhm.
up. My New Jersey driver's license. S8086658771070. Doesn't matter. I don't have it anymore. But I can remember that for whatever
Mhm.
reason.
Mhm.
And I shouldn't even know that number. It's stupid. But I can't remember. And I can remember like the first time I rode a bike,
Mhm.
but I don't remember an
Mhm.
awful lot about the rest.
Yeah.
Even birthday parties, Christmas, all that stuff is just kind of gone.
Yeah.
Um, but you're right. It's those things. And then, even after taking Stacy's course, Talic Motorsports on the side, with
Mhm.
remote viewing and understanding what the brain hangs on to, which is everything, right?
Mhm.
Everything. Um, yeah, everybody's kind of getting to where we're headed with this. This is really interesting questions and comments on the side, and I'm loving this.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to derail it, but yeah, we're very similar that way.
And I do. And Sabrina, I believe this is Sabrina, not her mom, because I think they're both signed in as two realm. But so that it is. It's funny how that 6 to 9 age range is
Yeah,
resonating with everybody. They really, when you really sit down and start thinking about it, you know, I just think it would be hard. And so I appreciate this. At 2ish, you saw a man in the closet. Of course, you wouldn't understand why that was probably not right or whatever. But I think sometimes the way stories are shared, it can be, well, when I was 1, I saw this, or when I was 2, I saw this, and it was my first ghost, and I know it. And, well, you don't know it. You're forming a story, and this is what we tend to do, because then you have to take into consideration the study that they've done on the brain, which is some memories do not belong to you. Some memories are memories you've either seen on a TV show, heard somebody else talk about, read about, and they have been sort of ingrained into your brain as if it belongs to you, and you truly believe that it does. And I'm going to tell you an example. I actually witnessed with my own eyes. I had shared a story with someone about both my parents had passed when I was younger, and my dad had passed in 2006. I had my mom's ashes that were at my dad. She'd passed in 97. I had her ashes mailed to my house. So I have two young children at the time. The mail person came. If anybody has ever had ashes delivered to your house, it has to state on the packaging human remains. So I walk, and they have to hand deliver it. The mailman has to hand deliver it. So it does come from a funeral home. So the mailman, of course, he knows what he's delivering. He's kind of got his head down. I open the door. I have two small children, toddlers, really. He hands them to me, gives me his condolences. It had been a long time, but thanked him, walked in the house, and I said, kids, and this is just me, so please don't take offense. And I just said, kids, your grandma's here. Because how else do you accept your mother? How else do your mother was mailed to you? Like, how, if I don't laugh about it, I would have fallen apart.
Right.
So I had shared that story with someone. Months later, maybe even a few years later, I don't remember, and it doesn't matter. I was with this person, and I heard them share that story, and they shared that story as if they were there and had witnessed it. They weren't there. It was just me and my girls. So
Wow.
it was an innocent thing. It wasn't trying to steal limelight. There was no claim that she had said any of this stuff, that she had just witnessed me doing it. And so sometimes that just happens. It
does.
happens. And I think for myself, I can say, having sisters 10 and 7 years older than myself, so many things that I have heard throughout my childhood, and I don't have many memories, but some of those memories truly might not belong to me. They might actually belong to them, because it's just things that I've heard.
Right. And you got me back to a second. When Ava was 3, she
Mm-hmm.
drew this photo, right? This is when all the paranormal was really kicking up in my house, especially around Ava.
Mm-hmm.
And I went back and looked at it after we started talking, because you got me thinking about it. And if you look, I mean, it's a creepy ass picture. I should have sent it to you, but it says,
Oh, there you go.
"Save Grandpa, Fred, help, please." I don't know what that thing is at the bottom. It
Oh.
was creepy. But if you notice the faces in the drawing, they're smiling. So the fear isn't there. The faces are smiling. It wasn't that whatever she was showing and feeling, she was never afraid. It's just interesting. So yeah, but back to your point, I've seen that happen as well.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
interesting.
it does.
Stories stick.
And that is that. And here's the thing, none of us, not one of us, is exempt from that. We cannot say it's never happened to me. The reality is you don't know how many of those memories are yours and how many aren't. And people do collaborate on that stuff, by the way. People can say, oh, I remember. I mean, this is why we have oh my gosh, now I'm going to have word loss. Talk about memory. This is why we have what's that called, when you think this is how something really is, but it's
The
not, like
Mandela
TV
effect.
shows. Yes, thank you. The Mandela effect. That is why we have that. So this is just the reality. It does happen. So then we start thinking, let's think back to some of our paranormal experiences that we feel we've experienced, and we've taken them on. And as we've grown, sometimes that experience grows a little bit. None of this is meant to say you guys are bullshitters or that we're bullshitters. This is just us saying, let's just take these things apart a little bit and let's explore them. And I agree, Facebook user, could the lack of fear be the reason why young children are more prone to experience? Maybe it could. And they're not, look, children aren't distracted. Like, now, children today, it would be interesting to have a study of, you would have had to do this years ago, but think about, Rob and I are old. We were born in the 70s. So think about the distractions we had back then, which wasn't many, compared to children born today who have hundreds and hundreds of distractions right at their fingertips. We didn't. We had to go out and make our own fun.
Yeah.
TV wasn't on 24 hours a day, right? You didn't listen to the radio or CDs, or you had to have records. I mean, it was a very different world.
Yeah, and to expand on your point as well, it could also, we're not saying anything about anybody's experiences, but
No.
you may find that some of your bigger experiences are
Mhm.
connected to something
Mhm.
from your childhood and or
Yep.
from years ago, and
Mhm.
that was the
Mhm.
case for me. And that was, here's the big reveal, that night that I reached out to Sarah for the first time, and she gave me some keys to unlock a lot of shit. um, it turned out that a lot of my bigger experiences were connected to something from my past. So it's clearly, so you got to sit this one through and don't walk away going, they're saying we're all fucking crazy, because that's not
No.
it. What we're saying
No.
is it might be way bigger than you thought.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and I think that's really what it comes down to. You know, really for Rob and I, when we talk about this, it's set the TV shows aside. Stop trying to have similar experiences. Stop trying to emulate something that is made for network television because they've got to sell ad spots. Let's talk about what it is we experience. And I say it all the time. We're so magical living. We're so magical throughout universe. Let's talk about those connections. And there might be things that you didn't realize might have been more of a paranormal experience than you even gave it credit for.
Yep.
We have we put them into these categories sometimes. And I think that's selling all these experiences so short. And I am completely geeked at how many people are commenting, Rob. Like,
Yeah,
there's some
and they're
great
really good,
comments.
because I now want to bust my notebook out and share some of this, because you guys are already there. You're already starting
Yeah,
to
they're
see
getting it.
where we're going with this.
Yeah. Trevor, my mom doesn't believe due to religion, and my dad is atheist, but we had a cemetery in our front yard. So as I was having these unexplained surreal experiences, my parents would just roadblock me. And, so then think about that. So you think about your age, you think about what your house, and Danny, that's Danny's comment, right? Troubled households in general sort of lend to children becoming hypersensitive to their environment. Right, and pick up paranormal experience. And Rob, that was one thing he kind of I did not read. He did not. He We talked about some articles he had. I did not read them because I'm giving you the things that have come to me. I'm sure through things that I've heard throughout my lifetime, but also just sort of a natural thing that came to me while I was working with Rob. And I didn't even know that I was going to be working with Rob that day. I think that's the part that everybody sort of needs to understand. When you reached out to me, you had been on my show. We had a little interaction here and there on the network on social media, but not really anything personal. I think I reached out to you about merchandise.
Yep,
Um,
one time.
but we hadn't had anything, no, zero conversations of personal. So when you reached out to me February 2nd, and you said, "Hey, did I ever tell you my Conjuring House story?" And I said, "No." You just went with it, and apparently I just went with it. I do not recall. I could not tell you to this day any specific question that I asked. Um, so that we have to rely on Rob for, because I cannot. But
Yeah.
this is sort of probably where these questions came from, because it clearly is something that it just sits with me for some reason. It just does.
Yeah. Listen, yeah, and she's not exaggerating, right? I came on her show that prior December prior. Couple liked comments, I guess, on Facebook with Get Haunted.
Mhm.
On 2-1, Sarah ordered a hoodie, right? I mean, she'd always been Paranormally Blonde, had always been a big supporter of Get Haunted. Um, and that was pretty much it. Oh, I sent you a message. I'm like, hey, I'm just gonna send this. You guys have supported us. And you're like, no, pain. Um, and literally, the next day, like I said, guy, I was in a deep, dark hole at that point. And that morning, you know, you know, wasn't sure if there needed to be another morning. So I was sitting on my couch, and I don't know you. I had no idea who you are or anything, but I literally heard a voice saying, just message Sarah. So I did. And I told her this story that I hadn't told anybody because I was really worried about either being locked up or somebody thinking I'm crazy. And maybe that's where I found a safe space in you. I don't know. But something told me I needed to call or message you, and I did. And I don't even know how long we went on talking, and it became this weird interview where Sarah would ask me these questions, and I'm like, "Fuck, how does she even know to ask me this?" And there were quite a few, 5 or 6 that were really really important, and she doesn't remember this part either. But just before she said goodnight, she said she asked me this question, and that was really what just solidified everything. She said, "Hey, Rob, did you ever stop to think that maybe those demons you were fighting were yours?" So I got to go to bed. Have a good night. And that was it. And I was sitting there, and I was like, I did. I'd sit and think about it. I'm like, holy shit. And then I thought about her questions. And then I started taking those questions and tying them back to experiences from the house, and then following that back to something in my life from when I was much younger. It's like, oh my God, who the hell is this woman? And how the hell did she know these things? And that's really how all of this shit kind of started, right? Like,
Mhm.
here's the good news. I went to bed wanting to wake up the next day because I had this new outlook, this new lease on life that I didn't know existed, and maybe all of it was going to be okay, and maybe all of that pain was supposed to happen so that I could heal and be better. So, y'all owe Sarah a huge round of applause for kicking my ass on this planet and for figuring it out. And once that piece clicked, right, it became more than a movie or a ghost story
Mhm.
or a book
Mhm.
or a TV
Mhm.
show. It became
Mhm.
an experience and not a
Mhm.
story or not a big pile of evidence that sounded scary. Now, when I hear the words that were recorded, they have a totally different meaning to me. So, um, going back to the early questions, yeah, sometimes the past seeps in, but then you just have to stop and turn that
Mhm.
piece of because look, our brains want to be scared. We get a big rush out of it. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's where all of this kind of came from. Just so everybody
But
knows.
I'm thinking, I remember, Rob, you even said like, "Oh, I do remember this for some reason. Tell me if I remember this correctly." I feel like early on you said, "Yeah, I would watch the shows," and right. And I hear people often say, "Oh, I started watching the shows and I got into this," and I don't think that's correct. There's a reason why we're drawn to this. This is to me, this is human nature, and we're at a point in our journeys where the TV shows are great. They're entertaining. Like you said, it gives you that adrenaline rush. It feeds that desire. It satiates that hunger for something. But there's a hunger that sort of is underneath all that, and we all want to understand, our mortality and truly our immortality for the afterlife. In my opinion, the thought of going on and um I love Stacy. You bring something up, and this is the part that Rob got into. Um, and this is the part that can offend some people, but
Yeah.
I think there might be something to it. It's not black and white though, right? You've got two sides. You've got the paranormal side, and it can tend to be a little black and white. Believe it or not, I watch people with very strict lines on it, very black and white with the
Yeah.
paranormal. And then you get the psychology and psychiatry and the sociology into this, and they're very black and white.
Oh
And
yeah.
somewhere in between all that, there's your answer.
We think, yeah, and that's where, when I talk about the little bit of research I did on this,
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
interesting because we'll get to it when we get to it. But yeah, I believe there's that middle ground. And again, so
Mhm.
if you read it this way, from the position of the psychologist, psychiatrist, the bit heavy science people, um,
Yeah.
they want us to look like a bunch of quacks, right? Not that they want. They're going to paint us a different
Yeah.
way. So you
Yeah.
got to find that middle ground.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And people are still definitely in that 6 to 9 range. It's a very interesting, I think, when we're really honest about, right? Um, yeah, and that's very interesting, Sabrina. And that's the thing. And when we talk, when we encourage our children to talk about things, and yes, as Trevor's experience was, when you have a parent that is very hyper religious and doesn't want to have that discussion. I was very blessed. My mother was very metaphysical. Um, you know, when she had me, and the things she was into with astrology and crystals and psychics and angels and all that, it not so much the ghost aspect, but kind of that love and light, an angel
Yeah,
aspect, and then I had my sisters into the horror movies, so I was into horror movies, and then that kind of turned into ghost stuff, and
yeah,
and so you have to like stop and just go, okay, wait, I'm not in love with paranormal because Zach Bagans. Why am I really interested in diving into this? What is it that I am looking for? What is it I want to understand? And I always come back to, it's really stop and understand you first. Go into you first, and really, we don't take a lot of time. This could be in any area in life. We don't take a lot of time to understand ourselves and the way our bodies work and the way our brains work and our emotions work. But suddenly we know everything about paranormal. It's like,
right.
let's start here. This is what we can know. This is what we can get a grasp of. This is tangible, right? So let's start there.
Let's start there.
Let's start there. Um, I'm just kind of, I want to go through everybody's comments here. I am so
There's a
giddy.
lot.
I am so giddy. This is great. Um, Chris Mack sharing his story. Different when I was 5. My mom asked what you're looking at in the hall.
Wow.
He thought he saw his grandmother. And I know a lot of children have that where they do tend to see a grandparent that
Right.
has been passed, or an aunt or uncle. Sam, open mind, yeah, and pureness, absolutely. I think that we're so far behind here on comments, but
Yeah, that's
um
way far.
D who, yeah, we're going back to the distractions. I think as adults, and now as investigators, add the new distractions of all the bells and whistles of equipment, and we're not really tapping into what paranormal is, and it truly is an experience. You are connecting with, if you believe that spirits or ghost or entity, whatever you want to call them, right? That's energy that you're connecting with, and you've got to connect. We're all little antennas, right? And we're all just constantly having those things that are, there's no way that it's ever quiet anywhere. Not one place is probably I'm just going to put it out there. I don't believe one place is more haunted than the next, because there are some very haunted places that people have zero experiences in, and there are some locations, your own home, that you can have huge experiences in. So what is it about your antenna at those moments that you're picking up what you're picking up? You can talk.
Oh no, I'm listening.
You're listening. So that's like that 6 to 9, and I feel like we've got a lot of people that resonates with. All right, so let's go on to the next. I feel 12 to 15 is a whole new realm of paranormal experiences. And think about, and especially girls, let's think about what it is we love to do at sleepovers. Let's talk about what teenage girls, what junior high girls tend to go look for at the library: witchcraft, We like to play with the Ouija board. We like to play light as a feather. We might have friends over to watch scary movies or tell scary ghost stories. Now your paranormal experiences are shaping into something a little different than when you were 6. Now it's a whole new world has been opened up to you, and you have a very much different concept of what fear and fun and trying to scare yourself. Now it's turning into something a little different. Can relate for us as a boy, Rob, because girls, I can see these slumber parties.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of those. But no, we would go out, we'd hang out in the woods and do dude stuff, throw rocks at things, start fires. Um, but then it was the walk home, you're walking through the woods and every sound
Mm-hmm.
starts getting scary, or uh,
Mm-hmm.
the urban legends of whatever area you grew up in. Those things now start to seep in and form whatever opinions there may be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, this is where we start influencing ourselves and the experience or non-experience that we had. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
very similar, just not as girly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember, you go to the library and the witchcraft books, whatever those
Yeah.
were at that point, they were all checked out, right? Everybody was going to try spells. Everybody wanted to be the craft. I do want to get to this comment because it is interesting. You think about those of us who have had those experiences, and you don't use them as a defense mechanism, as Stacy was talking about, but indeed you just shut them out because you just don't want to deal with them or think about them. So again, there are different how we all come to this, how we all experience it, where we go with it, right? It's very different. What are you laughing at?
Comments.
Oh, um,
I'm being
and
Mr.
guys,
Serious Rob tonight. I'm sorry.
oh, is that getting weird for people?
No.
I do want to say on the side though, thank you guys. You guys are sharing some very personal stories, and I appreciate that because I think this is when we share this, when we talk about this is one way people can sort of things can resonate, and you don't know who's looking at this and might walk away and say, okay, wait, now I'm going to reevaluate what was going on at that time and see what else could have been going on and maybe why I was feeling some of the things that I was feeling. Um, let's see, I'm trying to catch up here. Think, what do you think led you to call her? Well, so Rob, I am curious now that you've had some time and the more, obviously we know each other now. So, when you think about that voice in your head, do you think it was you in such a desperate state of mind, or do you think that there was something else on behalf of you that
Yeah, I mean, none of it makes sense to this date, right? No matter how we slice and dice this.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. That voice was not my voice. I don't hear voices. Yeah, I record them, but I don't hear
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
There was two within, a 14-hour span. Um, and if we it's when we start dissecting the bigger picture, right? And we go back to when the numerology gets involved and just the insanity of, you know, how I even ended up on your show, how Stacy ends up being part of this circle. And,
Mhm.
again, we're back to the twos, you know, I
Mhm.
don't
Mhm.
know, call it whatever you want. It had to happen. It just
Mhm.
had to happen, and it did, and
Mhm.
it still
Mhm.
makes no sense.
Yeah.
But when we boil away all the other stuff, the numbers are there, the
Mhm.
information's there. It's just odd.
Mhm.
It's odd. What do you think? I guess that's the question
Yeah,
there.
I don't know if and
What made you
So,
even listen to me? And would you have listened to anybody?
yeah, so that is an interesting question, and I have been honest with you from the very beginning, because that I do remember. I do remember when you first told me, and I'm going to assume it was before I asked questions. I'm going to assume that because I feel like you sort of like, blah, here's my story. Like,
Yeah,
here,
I puked that one out.
um and I remember you said almost right, and I remember this is not a call. He's messaging me. So
Texting.
I remember you said, "Do you believe me?" And I said, "Yes." I didn't think about it. I said, "Yes." Now I didn't know, Rob. Most of the time, if somebody just reached out, I'd be like, "No." And then you said, "Do you think I'm crazy?"
I did.
And I said, "No." And I think I was honest with you and said, I would have probably said yes to most people. I don't know why. There was, I never questioned it. You've asked me to this day,
I still worry about it.
do you
Yeah,
believe, do you
I
believe
do.
the story? Um, I do believe the story, and I don't think you're crazy. What do I think of that voice? It's an interesting question because I don't know, because as I am becoming more open about some things about myself and knowing what I know about a piece of me, I don't know, is this where I'm going to reveal this piece of me? I don't know. um, I don't know because I know there. So so here's something I will share, and I might have made the discovery because I finally have had this opportunity to have these discussions to be able to break things apart, my own beliefs down, and some of my experiences down, and sort of rebuild them without judgment. And here I'm going to make a quick plug for Get Haunted. That's what resonated with me. I finally felt like I could talk about this stuff openly and freely and try to discover what it is. So if you've known me for a long time, I have used this statement many times. I always said I'm a baby soul, but I'm governed by an old man, an old wise man, because there are moments that I think that I have great wisdom, believe it or not. And I share it very, it's odd how it comes out, but I also am an extremely, I feel like young sort of, just soul that struggles a little bit. So I always felt I was a baby soul with this wide, and I was always a man. Um, but in the last probably year, I guess, well, yeah, year, I think I've sort of opened up to understanding maybe what that is and what that piece of me is. Um, and maybe as we get into this, it will be something that naturally comes out. I'll just tell you, I do refer to it as her. It just is what I do. Only a few people really do know about her. Um, and I feel like she is very separate, but not. It's an odd thing. So if any of you have this same, I feel like I'm articulating it correctly. It's a hard thing to explain. Um, so knowing now and accepting and sharing and admitting her,
Wow.
it's hard for me to say if your voice was your own or not your own. I can't.
Yeah, I know you don't know the answer, and I can't even believe you're sharing her, but that's awesome. Yeah, I don't know. It's a great question. Who I,
Mhm.
I don't know. I really
Yeah.
don't. It was what I know is it was probably, possibly
Hmm.
the most important message I ever sent. It really,
Yeah.
it's that simple.
Yeah. So I
I
did. I
said
don't know
Joe's.
why. I don't know why I believed him, but I did. I do. I love this question too by Joe.
I did too. I'm curious about. paratorgy though, because where do I sign up?
Well, okay, so what? Oh, is that supposed to be purgatory?
Yeah. Joe,
Okay,
that's
so
the
what
best
if we
typo
really?
all day.
We're trying to be serious, Joe.
Yeah,
Don't
sorry.
do that. Okay, so what do we think about this? What if we are really in a form of purgatory? The spirits we connect to are really living. So, there is that thought that, that we are not truly here, or that we are dreaming, and the dreaming is the live. I mean, I I'm gonna keep it real for you, Joe. I follow zero Christian narrative, so it is hard for me to use though. But I get it. I understand the levels, and my kids did go to Catholic school, so I do know about purgatory.
Yeah, there's times I wonder, we can get into parallel universe
Hmm.
theories, all
Hmm.
these different things.
Hmm.
A lot of people do bring that up, if we're stuck here. Bloody Mary in the bathroom. Yeah.
I do love that dude stuff. You have to throwing rocks and finding
We
bodies.
did. We
Yep.
threw rocks at each other. It was stupid. I don't even know. Tequila
Um,
horror movies.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean it's that 12 to 15 is a very, very different, right? It's a very different age group, and it's a very, and you and let so for most of us, for some of us, I don't want to make anybody feel left out here, but 12 to 15, you're also exploring who you're attracted to and making connections, very energetic connections with another human being, a living human being. So I believe we start to feel energies a little different when we are connecting on that level and connecting in those ways. That's just my thought. I don't know how you feel about that.
oh yeah, I mean everything's changing, at that point, and your focus becomes much bigger things, especially as a dude. You start. So yeah, things can really start changing there. Plus, your intake of the outside world is starting to get much
Mhm,
much more diverse. So
mhm,
and
mhm.
you're going places and you're experiencing things, watching more movies, puking out the tequila after scary movies, stuff like that. There's a lot.
Yeah,
And Dee
yeah,
Dee changed her mind on this one. See, this is what
okay,
now she's saying 18.
okay. I'm going to challenge Dee Dee because I actually think it was much younger for her.
Could be.
Yeah. So okay, so Rachel, and here's a very good point as well. So what, and I want to I want to tread lightly on this because again, it's not, you don't have to share this information, but there are traumas that are connected to these age groups sometimes that, in 12 to 15 is, I don't believe it's common to lose a parent, but it does happen. But on top of that, it can be abuses of some sort or neglect of some sort. There are things that do happen in these age groups that do shape you, and because it's shaping you in the living world, it will also shape, I believe, your experiences in the paranormal. That is not saying that you're not experiencing paranormal, but how you're taking it in could be it could be very unique to your experience of living life, of the traumas that have been presented to you at those age groups. um yeah, the voices that live inside your head, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know if I have voices that live inside my head. Tammy is saying same for me. It was the deaths of my brother that I experienced. Yeah, so was 19. So again, right, like, and you know also you kind of take into consideration, it's like, that first breakup, and every song on the radio as you're driving home from the breakup is a breakup song, and you're like, god damn, it's kind of like you can't not hear it. Now your
Yeah.
focus is on
Right.
this, and
When you
so
buy a
now
new
you're
car,
probably, yeah, everybody has it.
everybody has the same freaking car every time, same
Everybody
color.
has it. Yeah.
Um, yeah, and we're slowly getting to the actual point of this thing, which is really cool. That and you kind of touched on it, is can these experiences from the past
Mhm.
shape the bigger experiences that we have as adults?
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
we're getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah, we're getting there. Danny, and right. So, I think you're meaning your grandma. I'm assuming, would tell us that that is hell. This is where you go to learn before you move on to something better. So that stuck with you. So, you know, we have to remember that all our beliefs do not belong to us.
Mm-mm.
All our beliefs have been handed down from somewhere. Um, and even those of us that practice any kind of goddess work or ancestral work, so if you're Native American, sometimes those things we take in as the ancestor speaking to us, but we have no real way of discerning what is something that's been planted. And some of this is DNA. I mean, they're even discovering that some of these past life experiences are not indeed one that you've experienced, but one your ancestor has experienced that is collected in your DNA. It is DNA memory.
Mm.
And so what is coming up. So when we have those discussions of, oh, you're afraid of water, that's because you drowned in a past life. Well, you could be afraid of water because of your ancestors either perished in water or lived in water and had
Right.
issues, who knows, spent their time
Right.
on the seas.
Yeah.
So the reality is, as they're discovering this, you are carrying memories of every single person that you are today. And to me, that is that's beyond magical to me, to think that we are carrying this on. That just freaked me out a little bit to say that out loud, by the way.
Well,
um yeah. So let's see. Rachel is saying, what about this question? What if the spirits we are talking with at different locations are people we have possibly known in a past life? That's why certain spirits connect with you more than other people. So I want to add this as a belief. I know we're veering off a little bit, but I'm so excited. We found our people, Rob. We found our
we
people.
found them. Now we just need a fire pit and some food. I
I
could go for
know, guys.
some like
We
Swedish meatballs.
should.
Right.
Okay, I think next show I'm just gonna bring snacks. We're just
Bring
gonna
some.
have to deal with me munching on snacks.
Okay, we'll do that.
So I have, I went from Christian belief system to a more Buddhist type, Tibetan Buddhist type belief system. So, speaking of past lives, I had always wondered if, because I do believe we do go on and live many, many lives. I do. It just seems that this would be a very natural, I don't know, a natural progression. However, I had often wondered, when you passed, does that shell of this life stay? If that's what is beyond and that's what we're connecting with spirit wise, and then the rest of your soul, because if you believe with the Buddhism, right, you're kind of ascending your karma, your karmic life, you're learning lessons and moving on, or you didn't learn a lesson and you come back and you relearn it. So are we shedding off these skins, so to speak, almost like a snake? Are we leaving those behind? And that is, so it kind of goes with what Rachel's talking about. Are we connecting with something that we had possibly had interaction with before?
Well, yeah. I mean, I believe that can apply in many cases, right? I also believe that when we go somewhere, look, Rachel has had the she got lucky and she was able to witness Cody Satori, right? And
Mm-hmm.
of the handful of times I've been able to do that and
Mm-hmm.
experience that with them, my dad has shown up several times, right? Three different locations. How the hell is my dad there? Right? It's where
Mm-hmm.
I no longer subscribe to the theories that, in this building, in this room,
Mm-hmm.
Joe Smith passed away and he's stuck in this room. How did my
Mm-hmm.
father show up in these three different places? Um,
Mm-hmm.
so, when we go and we're at White Hill or we go and we're at Mid Orange,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Rachel, absolutely. It could be somebody that's there with you. We've had EVPs happen at White Hill where it was somebody's brother, like friend. They were from New England somewhere, like no connection to the house whatsoever. Um, when we're doing what we do,
Mm-hmm.
we become the beacon. We are asking for them. So yeah, sometimes I think we pull the right people through. Sometimes I think
Mhm,
there's people just standing there going, I got to talk to these guys. They're trying,
mhm,
they're listening.
mhm, mhm. Well, and I think this is where, let's be honest, the living have more influence on what we're passing on when we go to these locations, especially now we're talking about locations that we can pay to go to, famous locations, locations that investigators constantly talk about on social media.
Yeah.
So the reality is those stories just get passed on from one person to the next person, and the reality is we all want to belong, we want to have something that connects us to another living person. And so there are times that I think we emulate an experience, or there might be that one thing that happens and then we sort of build that experience to fit somebody else's take on what their experience was. And I often, and I think I could admit, Rob, when you and I were at White Hill, and that's when we were using that was my first time using a music box, and I completely fell in love with it. But you had called the shadow people, and I was like, you were sitting in front of me in the room. I was sitting in a chair behind you, I don't know how many feet, several feet. And all of a sudden, I'm like, okay, they were kind of like looking from the doorway, and I could count them. I asked the music, like, make the music box go off when I hit the number of how many you were, and I had counted 8, and it went off at the number 8. Um, it was very interesting to me, but I think that then I overanalyze, I overthink what my experience was, and I know what I felt, I know what I saw. I don't need, you know, I don't need it. I don't need to prove it to anybody else because that's not why I'm doing it. If it is why it is interesting to me when people say like, well, I need to have solid scientific proof. But what is that proof anyways? Because there is no bar. There is nothing yet that is going to tell you that that is paranormal, that is truly ghost, because that would be like saying at the end of each of our lives, well, you didn't truly live your life. What's the bar? Who's
Right.
to say? Who's the gatekeeper
Right.
of that information? It's our experiences, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I might have just gone off there. I'm not quite sure.
It's okay.
Um, yeah, I do too, Dee Dee. I think that it's just an interesting thought, and I don't know how, does that make you stop and think about some of the things that people do talk about, that the past lives, or this can blow some theories out of the water, and to me, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think that, to take a belief or take an experience and really kind of go back and ask yourself, why am I experiencing it that way? You don't have to share it with anybody. I'm not asking you to divulge anything personal, or tear anybody else's theories apart. We're just saying, why not look at these and really kind of, um
Don't.
I don't know, talk about what it could or couldn't be. And I am going to challenge you, Dee Dee, because I don't think 18 is it for you. And for some reason, the number 7 comes to me, and I think 7 is a number that I need. Dee Dee, ask your dreams. That's what I'm saying. Ask your dreams. Oh, Dee Hoot, I love that. A campfire background, Rob. That's what you can do. Well, hey, Virgil, we've got somebody from England.
Hey, Virgil.
I kind of dig that. I love that. You
Virgil's
need
a
to come
very
to White
English
Hill.
name too. It's a cool name.
I kind of like that. I love it. You need to come to that, to White Hill. It is truly, truly amazing. So we talked about 12 to 15. Now I want to talk about 17 to 21. This age range to me is when people make very big decisions in their life. Rob, you joined the service
I did.
at 18, and that is a massive change to our everyday life,
It really was.
right?
Yeah. I mean, technically, yeah, I signed up at 17 and 18th birthday came and
Yeah, you
been
were gone.
out of school. And in October, I
Yeah,
was there.
yeah.
Oof.
So, this is a time, I graduated at 17. I'm a summer baby, so I graduated high school at 17, and started a real job. I was working in a corporate world. I had insurance. I had a 401k. I had the whole shebang. So it was a big life change for me as well. Um, so that 17 to 21, again, I think now we're really making some major mental changes in our life. Environmental changes. We're making maybe some more adult decisions, with ourselves, with our beings, and with other beings. And you're also now looking at life very different and very independently. And now, how does this shape your paranormal experiences and understanding choices and consequences? And Rob, I feel like this is what you were sort of hinting at. Um, um, Possibly about your actual first paranormal experience.
Yeah, it did. It was an important decision that needed to be made. Um,
Mm-hmm.
in a very stressful moment, I did
Mm-hmm.
disobey an order. Um,
Mm-hmm.
did not do what I was told to do,
Mm-hmm.
which was really a dangerous move. Being
Mm-hmm.
in the military. And it turned out that there were two amazingly great reasons that this did not happen, and it didn't go down the way I was told to do. And it was something else was telling me,
Mm-hmm.
do not listen, do not do this.
Mm-hmm.
It's a
Mm-hmm.
mistake. Um, and that's that. I chalked it up to just really good luck until you and I started talking about this, whenever the hell that was, over the past year or so. And thinking back to it, I was like, and there's probably something before that too. I don't know. Um, but yeah, once I really sat and went back to that moment and thought about,
Mm-hmm.
because it was the only time I
Mm-hmm.
didn't listen ever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, just something, I'll never forget the feeling. I'll never forget
Yeah.
not caring about the consequence of not listening to somebody
Mm-hmm.
superior to me. Um, just didn't care. I just knew it was the right thing to do. And something was telling me not to do it.
Yeah. So I'm curious, Dee Dee, 18 is sort of when you claim your first experience, but that would make sense to me because you're 18, you're out doing your thing. That I believe that was no, wait, was 18 your car accident?
That's
But
what you said
I
earlier. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that 17 to 21, I'm curious how many of you can look back at those ages and sort of now say, okay, what did I experience that really stuck with me? What was going on in my life at that time? What major change happened? Some people moved right out of the house and across country. Some people, right? Um, some people go on to college and do the college thing, and now are you paying attention to those things in your life, because now there's a whole new set of challenges in front of you, and you're independent and you're doing, you're living in a dorm, and you're partying and you're meeting new people and you're kind of gaining this new personality. So think about experiences that you may have had in that 17 to 21 time frame, and now stop and think back to the other ages I gave you, that 6 to 9, 5 to 9, 12 to 15. Think about, did these paranormal experiences evolve? Were they similar? Did they connect at all? Think about what what it is you had going on, what major things happened then. And it could be a trauma, or it could just be, for me, my trauma at 8 would have been moving from the state that I was born in and moving to Texas, and it being a very different world. That was traumatic to me. That might not be traumatic to other people. They might have had actual trauma, but you can't, there is no measure to that in somebody's life, because we all live very different lives. But now I'm just asking you to take these age groups, think about things that have happened, and think about experiences that you could claim or that you do sort of put in that category of paranormal. And what does it mean at that 17 to 21 age group? Did you have anything outside of that one particular moment in the service that you could kind of equate to, or were you so involved in what you were doing maybe that it wasn't something, because you kind of were in parts of the world that I am that have some very big beliefs in the
Oh, I
paranormal.
know, and I like the Mayan culture. Like, I
Mhm.
wish I could, and I can always go back. It's a lot different when you have the power of the military behind you, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I was into this back then, and I wasn't, right? I mean, I was walking around Mayan ruins and on the
Yeah.
burial mounds, and parts of Central America that nobody really goes to. So yeah, I wish it was
Mhm.
more
Mhm.
of who I was back then. I wasn't. Truth is, you know, the jobs I had down there were unique anyway, so I didn't have a lot of time to do much. Um, and you're so focused on doing your job when you're doing it that it
Yeah.
probably wouldn't have been all that much fun. But I would love to go back now and
Yeah.
explore some of the places I was at. 'Cause the
Mhm.
Mayan ruins were absolutely
But
incredible.
think about what you just said,
Yeah,
Rob. You weren't into
distract.
this. So you were walking around Mayan rooms. There are people who are into it and go. So think about exactly what he's saying and talking about mindset. So he was there for a job doing something very serious, but he was in some very, very sacred spaces and Central America, South America, very deep religious beliefs
Oh
that
yeah,
lead to very big paranormal beliefs. Yet you were just fine. You're just out there doing your job
totally
and you
good,
weren't.
right? Even some of the the sacrificial stones where they like where you put your hand.
Yeah.
Um, Look, let's imagine the most haunted location on the planet, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And if we brought in two groups of people or a group of people and said, look, there's $1 million in cash
Yeah.
hidden
Yeah.
in that house. Go find
Go.
it. They'd all be looking for that $1 million, right? If they found it, they'd keep it. Probably wouldn't have a paranormal experience. Send people in there under the, looking for the ghost. They're gonna probably have that paranormal
Yeah.
experience. So, yeah, if you're not paying attention, if you're not looking for it, you'll
Mhm.
probably miss it.
Yeah, you really will. What is the best piece of equipment you feel gives the best evidence, Rob?
Your body, whoever
Yeah.
that was, it's you. If you're talking about if you want a literal answer, I would say voice recorders are my favorite piece of equipment.
Mhm. 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 Sam, I'm sorry to hear that, and that's right. I mean, again, this is when I feel like I recall that age, those late teen years, those early 20s when you start to work. I remember coworkers or friends or people that I knew started to have those going to my grandparents' funeral.
Yeah.
For me, you know, my grandparents, for the most part, outlived my parents, so I didn't like it was a very different thought process for me. But I do recall that and it being very hard for that, especially that I feel like that 15 to about 20, I sort of remember that little bracket where when my friends' grandparents started to pass, like that being very hard for them and not really knowing what they were going to do with themselves at that point because grandparents were such an important they played an important role
Yeah.
in our lives. Um, so now I'm going to go on. We were at 17 to 21. I'm going to go, I jumped it a little bit. I went to 25 to 32 and I chose those ages. I'm going to tell you, I chose these age range and Rob can verify this more. I'm sure some of this is an educated guess, but kind of more intuitively because, you talk about 25 to 32. You've been independent, you've been working for the most part, you're out there living life, and now you're really moving on to those next phases, which a lot of us got married within that time frame. We made some pretty big life decisions. We bought homes, possibly. We probably bought some cars. We probably put ourselves in some pretty stressful financial positions,
Mm.
for some of us. And so now, where is your head with paranormal in that time frame? 25 to 32. Does anybody have on the side any big experience that you can think of? This could be when Dee Dee, she's trying to remember 25 to 32. No kidding, right? Some of us were having babies, and now you're adding some new stressors and new responsibilities to your life. So now what paranormal experiences are we having? Are we having grandparents or loved ones that have passed visit? Is there, and are we looking as we're combining lives and bringing new life into this world? What is it we are connecting with? I love that theory of women when we do give birth. I think we talked about this with Stacy. We are a portal. Women are a portal, and we are bringing in new life. So, what are we connecting with in those age brackets, 25 to 32? Rob, do you have anything there?
Yeah, well, I do believe I started kind of becoming a little more interested in the paranormal in that age range. Probably when I was finally starting to make some money. So you're
Mhm.
right. It was all those fun things were happening. I definitely took more of an interest in the paranormal, UFOs, um,
Mhm.
ghost stuff. That was kind of when it all started to kick in for me in
Mhm.
that age bracket.
Mhm. Mhm. And Danny, I love this. And this is another thing I want to talk about. So you again, let's talk about the evolution of your paranormal experiences. 6 to 9. We don't have a great concept of what any of this probably really means, but
Right.
you do start to understand the fear factor and the concept of what maybe is scary with ghosts. And then 12 to 15, we start to dig in a little deeper. We're reading witchcraft, we're playing Bloody Mary, we're doing light as a feather. 17 to 21, we're becoming a little bit more independent, maybe having a little bit more of our beliefs. Sometimes that's when kids go to college and they tend to break off from their parents' belief system and try out some of their own. And then that 25 to 32, now we're getting into the spiritual aspect where we've definitely formed some of our own opinions. We've lived life a little bit. We've had some major experiences in our life. So I kind of love how she's explained that it does become more of a spiritual experience. I appreciate
Yeah.
that, Danny. I love that. Trevor is saying at that age, I feel like most people are realizing how they can control their feelings while also trying to help manage the kids with their experience. Balance is hard to acquire. I agree. But I also think at 25 to 32, and especially if you've got some of those things going on, this is where we become even more distracted. And then, even though for some of us, we might see it as a spiritual thing, we kind of push down the entertainment factor of paranormal, maybe, right? We have better things to worry about. We have other
Yeah.
things we need to think about. So it does become something different. And maybe that's why it turns into a spiritual need because we ain't got time for that.
Right.
We just don't, right?
Yeah.
We've got to figure this out, and especially if you have children. Um, I did
Buddy.
from my kids' very early ages, take them to cemeteries and did ghost stuff in front of them and let them handle the equipment. And I can report they are just fine young adults and well adjusted and balanced. Um, so yeah, I think you know as we grow older and we make our own decisions and what has worked and what hasn't worked, and I didn't go further than 25 to 32, um, because I will tell you every decade of our life brings something very different, and my 50s have brought something very different than my 40s, although I started my journey in my 40s with my newfound belief system. Um, and now it is spiritual, but it's I don't know if I want to use the word spiritual anymore. I almost want to say it's just universal. It's just universe.
Yeah.
It's just about accepting this grand, big, beautiful universe and the speck that I am, the star that I am in this universe, and how it connects with each and every one of you. There's a reason we're all here tonight.
Yeah.
There's a reason we're all talking about this. There is a reason. So I agree with you, D Hoot. I don't believe in coincidences either. I just don't. I think that it all, like, why is this conversation tonight? I'm watching and so impressed with everybody sharing
Oh my God. It's so
their
cool.
experiences, right? And their thoughts on this, more than I thought. I'm and it's not that I didn't have any expectations, but I'm so beyond impressed. I would love to get everybody together and have a talking
Such a
conversation.
good campfire talk. I mean,
Yeah.
when we look at all of it, right? I think
Mhm,
if everybody
mhm.
sits and is pretty honest with themselves, and I think Dee Dee's saying she didn't type what came up as her last comment.
What do you
Um,
mean? I first heard she didn't
yeah,
type that?
she said she didn't type that; it just showed up. Um,
Oh.
yeah, and Sam, that's what's gonna happen, right? It just keeps getting
Mhm,
bigger and bigger, and yeah, I think, but if we look at everybody's comments here, and this one
mhm,
is a great example of it, right? Is something, something from your past, call it a trauma,
mhm,
call it whatever you want.
mhm,
Um, some things can shape the paranormal experiences that we have. And it doesn't mean that we're interpreting them all
mhm,
exactly correctly. It's how what your term is, we take them in, or what, it's how we describe them. Um, the little bit of research that I did shows studies that go way back to the 80s. A more recent one in 2014, and then some in between. There was this Irwin model, right? So what the psychologist wanted to try to demonstrate was, you know, well, I have the actual title, but it's childhood trauma and the development of paranormal beliefs. So what they want to say,
mhm,
and what I'll get into here in a moment is that, if you had alcoholic parents as a child, if you were attacked by a dog, there are
mhm,
reports of children that were attacked by dogs later having paranormal experiences with phantom dogs, right?
mhm,
um, that first one they did, the latest one in 2014 that I could find, they did 198 undergrad students. And what they're saying is that they found partial correlations and path analysis, basically revealed that fantasy proneness and avoidant coping styles mediate a relationship with the paranormal. So what they're saying is, in some cases, a trauma can bring you to a paranormal experience. They want it to be very, very black and white, like you were saying, very, right in the beginning. What they're
mhm,
not taking into account is why is it happening. So the hardcore scientists don't want you to think that they want to give you a reason why you're having a paranormal experience. But then there was this university in England that did a very unique study, and they did um, a bigger test case with about
mhm,
600 people. And what they found was that the model that they were using, this old model, really isn't fair, right? But what they were able to show is that there is a direct correlation between, because it went childhood trauma, fantasy proneness, and then paranormal belief systems. They put those three
mhm,
things. They're saying that middle piece can go away, that there was a small but very significant number of children that had some sort of trauma
mhm,
that later have very big paranormal beliefs and belief systems. And it doesn't mean
mhm.
that they're not real. It means
Mhm.
that something from their
Mhm.
childhood came out later in life, which goes back to two incidents, that you helped me solve with the
Mhm.
Conjuring House.
Mhm.
And how the books in that library happen to know about me were things that I was not trying to connect dots here. I was not
Mhm.
trying
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
fill a gap, right? And
Mhm.
since then,
Mhm.
there have been friends of mine who have gone, and I won't mention names or even what they found, but somehow that library seems to know things about you, and it certainly knew plenty about me.
Mhm.
And those paranormal experiences, while I couldn't explain them at the time, once I stopped and once you kind of shone this light onto the potential that maybe this is something in one case 40 years ago for me, um, 42 years ago, it was something I needed to work through. It was something I needed to heal from, and here was the universe, the Conjuring House, a book,
Mhm.
underlying things
Mhm.
saying, "Hey, dude,
Mhm.
this is
Mhm.
still bothering you. You need to get this taken care of so that you can be
Mhm.
completely free." So it's really, really interesting that universities and colleges have put time into um, trying to kind of debunk it, but at the same time saying, yeah, here it is. There is some kind of correlation, and look what's happening. What just happened? Why are
Mhm.
we holy shitting?
I don't know, Dee Dee. I'm excited. She remembers.
She remembers. There it is.
Is it seven, Dee Dee? Is it seven? Um, Rachel's saying it's not, in my opinion, a black and white kind of thing with your experiences. Like you said, Sarah, there are no such things as coincidences, and the universe has a plan for us all. I truly believe that. And let's talk about the ancestral memories in our DNA for a moment. And maybe this is how universe speaks to us, and
Mhm.
maybe some of those many lives speak to us. And I guess we all believe paranormal for a reason. And that is because we have at one point or another heard it from somebody we've loved, watched it on a movie or a TV show, right? Or we
Yeah,
read about it.
yeah,
Um, Somewhere these seeds have been planted. And, you know, I'm not saying those seeds are wrong, and Rob's not saying those seeds are wrong. What we love to talk about, and it is truly just sitting down with some of these things that we have believed for so long or have not believed and just said for a moment and it is one reason why I can say the word her um, a little bit more openly, I think, is because you know, I don't know. I can't give you a definite of what her is. I just know that there is this seemingly larger than my life entity that has made some appearances and some discoveries. I'm sorry, I have to get to Dee Dee's
yeah.
comment
You got to do
because
this.
when I
She's
was seven, a
finishing.
friend
She's finishing. She's going to continue typing. So don't.
Okay. When I was 7, a friend and I wandered off, gone for over 4 hours, police looking for us. We were walking on railroad tracks. Happy kids having fun. A man was wearing a leather jacket and jeans like the
Oh,
oh,
see, this is what's going to kill me. There. Here we go. 19. Cut.
okay.
Next.
1950s attire, smoking a cigarette. He said, "Hey, what are you kids doing down here?" We ran away back home.
There it is.
Wow.
7. So
Okay.
let's throw some perspective, right? Let's take the Conjuring, and that's awesome. So Sarah,
Uh,
and there was
oh,
a
I don't
killer.
love hearing.
Ah,
I don't love that, Dee Dee.
Jesus.
Yeah. Was he
She's
an
saying he
angel?
was an angel. Probably was.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm,
so let's just throw perspective. Just 'cause it took me a minute to figure this part out, right? So let's take the Conjuring House, the library, and a bookstore, right? So if you don't know the story, I would go in there, I would pull a book randomly, and the book, I'd open a book, and there'd be underlined words or a story or whatever, and they tied back to things in my life.
Mhm.
One of them was a very scary thing for me, something that
Mhm.
was not cool. And when I pulled up a particular book that day, and that particular thing was presented to me, I was like, "Oh my god! Like this, it's trying to get me.
Mhm.
It's trying." But no, like it. That was how I was seeing this. Once I realized that why was the universe having me pick this book, showing me this information? It was something that I hated, that was scaring the shit out of me for a long, long time, and I needed to kind of get past it. And I can give you 100 examples of that, but that's really what I'm talking about from the perspective. I went in there scared, expecting a scary story, and I got it.
Mhm. Mhm.
The truth
Mhm.
was, it wasn't a scary story that was happening. It was a beautiful story that was really, really helping me as a human being. So go ahead with Kaylee's comment.
She says she started this journey being a skeptic, now doing this for a bit. I'm a firm believer that there is something out there, but the question is what? And here's the thing, that what is different for everybody, and that what is not going to be like, we've talked about this, and I'm hoping that this show, if it is a show that you guys find interesting and helpful, and I hope that you see what we're doing, how we want to talk about things. But why do some I hear talking right now. Are you listening to something, Ron?
I turned on, I looked at a message and we were playing the weirdest thing.
Okay. That just freaked me out because I was like, why do I hear a
It
woman's
was me.
voice?
It was
Okay. So, some of us refer to things as ghosts, some of us entities, some of it spirits, some of it energy. Why is Grandma Ann, your guardian angel, and she's coming here, but Grandma Sue in the most haunted house is a evil entity? We have to ask ourselves, why do we place these categories? What was that belief system, and why do we carry these stories? What do these stories do for us? You might have seen on Paranormally Blonde, we had a guest, Craig Owens, that Dee Dee has investigated with, and he's not a fan favorite for a lot of locations because one of his jobs is that um, he likes to understand where the stories of these locations come from, and he has discovered some of these stories have been, uh, for lack of a better word, concocted, right, to place a story on some of these locations. So he will tell you why and what decade they came from, but how we have grabbed onto these stories and we've had experience bases based on these stories. So I think this is one of those things where, why do we believe what we believe? We have to ask ourselves. And I think we've had so many amazing answers on the side of, even if you don't realize what you're sharing. My mother was very religious, my grandmother didn't believe in this. We had hats on. John Curley's talked about a young boy who was having some physical effects of seeming paranormal activity, and the grandmother wanted nothing to do with it. I believe that young boy was living with his grandmother, and she was very religious and wanted nothing to do with it.
yeah.
So, we have to stop and ask ourselves, um, well, it's not funny, and I don't like that I just said that, Sam. um, so, why do we carry these beliefs? What is it in our lifetime? Can we stop? And this is why I say, if you feel drawn to, this is where a journal sort of becomes important. And Rob was journaling his experiences and probably not even realizing why he was doing it. He probably just felt drawn to do this. But if you stop and journal some of these things, this is what I'm going to tell you. You're not going to discover that what you've experienced was simply an escape from something horrible that you experienced. I think what you're going to find is you have more paranormal experiences in your life. You have more magic in your life than you ever even realized.
Oh my
Um,
god. Yeah.
That's where we're going with this,
And
folks.
yeah, and I think, to break away and peel away the classic definition of paranormal, the ghost and the chains and the lantern and all that, it's so much more. Now,
Mhm.
not everything's paranormal, but when you start looking at things and you start just sit
Mhm.
down and dig in, look at count days between certain things, take dates and tie them to other dates.
Mhm.
When you really start looking at it, I mean, I have this crazy spreadsheet that shows dates, and it's dates this way, dates that way, and it counts the
Mhm.
number of days. You'd be really surprised at how many
Mhm.
times certain numbers come up. It's absolutely
Mhm.
incredible when you start looking at things
Yeah.
macroscopically. It's really cool.
Well, and and this is, you know, who talked about vibrate? Was it John Curley who talked
Yeah.
about the vibrations in the beginning? So think about this, why do some of us experience what we experience? Why do we resonate with certain things? Why do some of us like the higher frequencies? Why do some of us like the lower frequencies? There's a reason, folks. There is something here that is giving us some answers. And when we take some time with ourselves and we understand when we go in, and I'm just going to say, most of us on the side here, I'm assuming, are a form of investigator. So I think this is where it's been a lot of fun, to have this journey with Get Haunted and to go into some of these things. When we deal with a lot of first timers coming in and they're discovering their passion of paranormal, they're not here yet. So when they're going in, they're looking for some of those experiences to emulate because it's what they know, it's what they've seen, and they want something to kind of shoot for. So when that's going on at these locations, sometimes we have these chances to go and now experience it the way we want to, which is very different than the first timers. And that's not a we're better, they're this is not what it's about. It's understanding now when we're there, why do I check? Why do I go to the room that I go to? And it's oftentimes not the room that's been talked about. What's telling me to go here and why? And there are some locations that just turn me away. I've had many locations that people have had massive experiences at that I just can't get one at. Why? What is it about me and that particular location? Is it our vibrations? Is it our frequencies in that is just not meshing? If we
So
don't get along with some living, I might not get along with some dead. I don't know.
yeah, or perhaps let's see in a year, let's take you back
Yeah,
to one of those places that you couldn't get anything and
yeah.
see what happens. I'm curious to see if that
Hmm.
would change at all for you after
Yeah,
everything.
yeah. So, I hope you guys kind of, as Rob has stated now a couple times here during the show, you guys are getting it. You are seeing what we are talking about. You're flowing right along with it. So, think about that, and you guys all have shared that, but that 6 to 9, 5 to 9, that 12 to 15, that 17 to 21, and that 25 to 32. And then go to the age you are now. If you are past those ages, and if you aren't past those ages, you're just adorable and we love you. And but think past those ages and what it is we are experiencing now, and get honest with yourself. Ask questions if you have family that are still around that you can say, "Hey, I hung around you a lot at that 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. What were we doing? What was going on? Did you have anything?" Um, Mark some of this stuff down, and especially for those of you that have children that are coming up in this and right alongside you and have an interest in the paranormal and are watching you with your interest in paranormal. You are shaping that for them, and I guess you know what I would hope, and I think I've been this way with my girls from the beginning, just to be open. I am not a big demon believer. It doesn't mean I don't believe in negative. I do, but I'm not a big demon believer. So I've never been worried about that with my children, and I've always had them sort of, they don't use that terminology. They do get nervous with some experiences that they've had, but they don't use that terminology either, but it doesn't stop them from exploring a little bit. one doesn't explore it quite as much and she has the bigger experiences. It's interesting. So does she get it more because she's trying to ignore it? The other one tends to not shy away, but it's kind of like, okay, mom, they always blame it on me. And yet I'm not getting those experiences that they are. So it's all very interesting to me. Mary Ruth is saying everyone has more developed senses than others, so it's not a matter of why not me, but what senses am I not utilizing? True. I mean, and look, I have definitely changed. I think, Rob, you can say that I have changed just in the time we have met with how I answer questions. I think because I hadn't had that space where I could say it without either sort of getting a little bit of, you know, razzing or right, like people giving me shit for it or just not having the interest in it. Now that I'm in this circle of people and I can talk about it a little bit more, it is easier to be able to just say, okay, it's not that I don't experience, Mary. I do. I just experience very different, and how I share it is very different, maybe. Is that a fair way of saying it, Rob?
It's a roundabout way of saying it. Yes, it's fair. It's beyond fair.
Yeah. Yeah. We have come a long way.
Oh,
So, I think, thank you first and foremost. Thank you beyond for your openness,
yeah.
and your shares on the side. It's incredible, and I respect each and every one of you. And I think after tonight, like I'm sort of in my field right now. Like I'm a little teary eyed. There is um, a deeper respect and to understand. And this is what I love about the community. And this is what Rob and I had hoped, because we had these conversations, and believe me, they get crazier. This is kind of a light,
Yeah, this is a
we're
light break.
starting.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
we're just starting. We don't want to scare too many people away. But this is to hear you guys speak and to really see you guys look at yourselves and your experience and to share them openly. Um, that makes a difference. I think it's a beautiful thing to see each of us in the community be able to not have the, well, you don't believe this, you suck, or you don't know what you're talking about, or you're wrong. Because the answer is nobody has the right answer, nobody has the wrong answer. We just have our answer. And we want to understand why we have the answers we have. And thank you guys so much for sharing what you've shared. And I look forward, and if you're interested to come on with us and talk, we do have guest lineup. I cannot wait for Dee Dee to come on and discuss the dream aspect
Yeah.
of paranormal. Super excited. But any of you, if you want to come on and you want to, I can give you the topic, and there is a private group, Seek with Your Soul, and can continue the conversations, and I can give you little bits and pieces of what we might talk about in the next topic, which will be not this coming Thursday, but the Thursday after. But we can kind of give some topics where you might say, hey, you know what, I would love to talk about that. If you want to come on and tear some thoughts apart and some beliefs apart, we would love to have you. What are you looking at?
Looking at my light.
Oh,
Oh, now I
uh,
want special lighting like you have. Mine's adjustable. I just can't figure the damn thing out.
you can get this on. This is golden hour. You can get this right on Amazon.
Yeah, mine can do it. I gotta figure out
Okay.
the buttons. Calm down.
Oh, okay. Danny, I love that. Was it? I hope that it gives everybody an opportunity to just sort of look at paranormal a little different, a little outside of the network television, a little outside of the popular paranormal people. Nothing wrong with them, but we just want to discover exactly what this is for us, not for everybody else. We're not here to match an experience. We want to know what resonates, and it's very interesting to already see some things that we're matching up for people. I'm very impressed with that. Totally. I'm excited. I'm excited to expand some of my thoughts and theories. This is going to be really cool. What are you like? What
You just funny.
is it? Is it funny? So yeah, so age groups, right? Our little age, little brackets and our experiences. I'm going to think more on mine. I don't have a lot of memories from a lot of those times. Like Rob, that is one thing we did discover, that we have
Yeah.
these weird pockets that don't have anything in them. And no, to my knowledge, just I've already had a psychic medium tell me this, that probably why I have memory loss is that there was abuse there, and I am cutting it out. I can safely, I think, say with 99% certainty that that is not the case.
Yeah.
It just, I think it's a phenomenon that has happened to many people, and that there could also be people with not those memories without trauma. It can happen, and it has happened. I'm living proof of that to my knowledge. Or I have dug this thing, I have buried it so deep, I have no freaking, I mean, like none. There is nothing there. So yeah, but it is, but I think at the same time, I think these deep dives have a way to sort of take me back to some things and really, really sit down and think about, if I have to look at pictures, you know, to go back to some of those age groups. Maybe that will have something to say. What are you looking?
Just listening.
Oh, Sam likes your laugh.
No, no, I'm listening to you go on because this is really fun to watch. I'm digging it.
I love that, a blogcast. I kind of like that, Trevor. It kind of is. So I do hope, I do hope that you guys are keeping some sort of notes, because we do want these shows. We're a big believer in red thread, and we do want that red thread to go through these shows, and we hope that you can see some connections. Where are you thinking we go next, Rob? Where do you think we go next?
With the show?
Yeah, like what are you thinking? Where should we take this next?
Well, so I just want everybody to understand. We're going to end this on, honest, fun notes. Like literally the age brackets, I got what, a minute before the show starts. So we freestyle this whole damn thing. I did a little bit of research just, because understanding the childhood to paranormal connection was a big part of the message here. So we talked about how, a little bit, and this, we just scratched the surface on this whole
Yeah.
topic, right? But how can, and we saw it with Dee Dee tonight, right? Dee Dee's version of her first paranormal experience was probably incorrect based on everything I'm hearing. Now she went from 21 to 18 to 7 in an hour, which is amazing.
That's my gift, by the way. That's my special gift.
It's ridiculous. So if we start there, right, and then it becomes how can that shape our experiences? I don't know. There were some topics on the right that made me go.
There's great ideas. I mean, honestly, to go back through, and we'll have to. So yes, Dee Hoot, the show made itself, and Dee Dee, I want you to know, I am no more prepared for this show.
Yeah, no.
That I am prepared normally blind. Dee Dee knows this is, Dee Dee and Rob are very similar. They like to have some preparation and to understand what we're about. I mean, Rob kept saying, Sarah, we have a show Thursday. Sarah, we have a show Thursday. Are you ready for it? He must have asked, and I'm like, yep. Yep.
Listen, like, first of all, like, I did my research. We didn't even talk about 3 pages of research here.
Yeah.
In my black notebook.
Here's mine. Ready?
Yeah.
So there's some old notes on here. There's stuff from Haps.
I know.
And that was from the live.
I know
and
how
then
it works. I know
the
how
notes
you
that I
operate. Let's not show everybody you getting in trouble at the end here. What I'm saying is this turned into something really, really cool. So I'm not quite sure where. I think we need to go and review these.
Yeah. And Dee Hoot, I think this right here, how about your experience, how your experience has made you? And I think this is where I think it is a great topic, because what you start to see is There are some of us that chose a certain path and we went with it. There are some of us that are letting it organically play out. So that we might have to make it a little bit more specific, because that could
Okay.
be a very broad, how your experiences made you, but it is along the same vein. And so, yeah. Yes, I do wear. So, okay, Dee Dee, don't, now she's giving me shit. If you guys ever watched the very first Paranormally Blonde, I believe I am wearing a blazer. I am wearing my green velvet blazer, and
Oh,
that's how you know I'm prepared. So, yes, this is how you know Sarah's prepared, or else. Listen, I showered, folks. I showered and got ready. I wore earrings tonight. Like, this is how I prepare.
she got on. I'm like, it's in your ears.
Are you wearing earrings? I know, I never do that. So yeah, I love this. How about if you revisited old experiences, what would you think or have done this time? You know what we should do? Okay, here's your homework. Here's your homework. Let's take those ages, 6 to 9, 12 to 15, 17 to 21, and 25 to 32. Write out your experiences that you can remember, if there isn't one in those time frames, but it seems like everybody pretty much had some. If there wasn't, leave it blank, but if there was, and let's take a little bit of D Hoots and a little bit of Trevor's. Think about those old experiences and what would you do at this age, and how would you think about them at this age? And you're going to have to really strip them down a little bit and really ask yourself some questions, and remember as much as you can. And then let's talk about how maybe some of those experiences at those ages did shape us to who we are today.
Okay.
All right. So there's your homework.
Done.
Done and done.
You can go another 2 hours if you want. I don't give a shit.
Yeah. Would I do this homework? Because I'm not great at homework. I don't prepare for
it. We know. We're just going to talk about it. They can do it. Yeah. We'll talk about it. I got my story. My story right now is that story. So that's easy enough.
Yeah. Listen, and here's the thing. The reality is, everybody knows I just shoot from the hip. It's just who I am. It's how it's going to have to be. So thank you so much, T-Realm.
You're going to have to write this shit down for
I'm going to put it in the group. I'm going to
put it in the group
with your soul. I'll put it in a group so everybody knows. And let's talk about it. And let's talk about, go through pictures, ask some family. If you have family, you can ask and see if anything sort of is triggered, if you can remember something else. I will write those down for you. Again, 6 to 9, 12 to 15, 17 to 21, and 25 to 32. But I will put them in the group for you. So,
hey.
Okay, Trevor, we all don't need to know. Yeah, like in high school for me too, I'd always be like, yeah, I didn't do it, or it's late. But I will give this some thought to this. All right, guys, we have kept you for 2 hours, and I don't want to. I mean, we could go another 2. I could too, but we want to make sure that we're taking little bits at a time, and we're giving it the love and attention that it all deserves. So. Yeah. Everybody on the side, like always, we love you, we see you, we appreciate you, and seriously, thank you for your interaction, thank you for your shares, and thank you for getting personal and your honesty. That's how we gain some new perspectives, some new thoughts, some new theories, and really where we start to connect, where we really start to see that, you know what, our differences, truly there are some similarities in those differences, and that's where we start to really see that red thread come through. I'm so excited, Rob. I'm so excited. I hope that you see there are people that want to talk about this. We had a great time with you, Mary. Thank you. Break time, Rob. He's gonna go eat. I don't know, what are you gonna go do? I'm going to bed.
Well, I gotta eat, I gotta walk the dog, and then I gotta go to bed. I know this CBD started kicking in hard. So
yeah, let's do this show. Hi. Yeah. Sam, we love you, and we hope you have a beautiful night. So not this Thursday, but Thursday. I don't know what the date is. Here, I'll look it up real quick. You say your good nights, Rob, and I'll look up that date. So it'll be the 31st. It will be August 31st.
Shit.
that we will have our next Seek with Your Soul. But let's interact on the group page. I know, Dihu, you are not on Facebook, but you can always throw me an email if you have anything you want to add. We would love to talk, and hopefully you got your hat. That was supposed to be delivered today. I did not check your tracking today. So I hope you got your hat. So August 31st, that is the next Seek with Your Soul, and we will talk some more about why are we experiencing the paranormal exactly the way we are. It's gonna be fun. Yeah, right. Who needs TV? Screw TV. Sarah and Rob are going to take over. We're going to knock network TV out of the way.
We're running the entire country, we're going to ban all televisions.
That's right.
It'll only be YouTube and only this channel. And Paranormally Blonde too. Don't worry, Dee.
Whoa.
Dee, sorry.
And Dee Dee's channel, so we can get her dream analysis.
Yes. We'll keep those channels too.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, you guys have a fantastic night. Thank you for spending 2 hours with us. Thank you so much for truly your shares, your honesty, your openness. It's what it's all about. And truly, we are not a cult.
Not yet.
We're the cultiest non-cult out there.
We're like cult light.
Cult light, maybe.
Like beer, like cult. It's all good.
It's all good. It's all fun. This is what you can't make weird hand signs. I'm just going to give you one of these. Kisses and love to everybody. Stay safe. Tell your stories, share your stories, encourage those people out there to be a part of the paranormal community, be the good that we want to see. Oh God, all hail King Stack. There we go.
Yes.
There we go. The show needs to be over. Thank you, Kathy. That's when you know it's got to be over.
I would have behaved if I knew Kathy was watching.
That's right. All right, guys, go have a fantastic night. Have a fabulous Friday and have a great, safe weekend. Get your rest and drink your water, and we'll talk to you guys. Well, we'll talk to you guys on Wednesday, but we'll talk to your souls.
Yeah.
August 31st.
Yes. And thank you, Sarah, for unlocking all of this for your boy, King Stack.
King Stack.
All right.
Yeah, we love you, Trev.
All right.
All right. Have a great night.